I would never promote you. Company might promote you, but I wouldn't do it. And I was shocked. And I kind of asked him why. And he was like, who have you grown?
Leadership isn't failing because people don't care. It feels harder than it should because too many leaders were never shown how to carry it. This is the Leadership Lunch Hour. I'm Don Healy, joined by my good friend Adam Cumpiano. We've led teams in environments where the pressure is real, mistakes are costly, and decisions have consequences. These are unscripted conversations about what leadership actually looks like when you're responsible for people, outcomes, and hard decisions. Welcome to the Leadership Lunch Hour, episode number 3. Adam and I were just celebrating a little bit before we got on here. Most podcasts, I think they say 90% of podcasts don't make it past the 3rd episode. So Here is to episode number 3. And Adam, you've been getting a ton of comments and calls and stuff and all the social channels about what we're doing. And the support is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, blown away. I mean, people I haven't talked to in a long time. And then some really good peers of mine, like on the coaching side and the business side, and the responses through the roof. The feedback is phenomenal. Shout out to Heidi Youngie, reached out and wanted to help us with marketing, some things. Really appreciate the love and support for sure.
Absolutely. It's exciting to see people that want to listen to what we have to say. You know, like we talked about, you know, the whole basis of this podcast is to document transcripts and figure out how to make a book. Again, you know, we don't entirely know what we're doing. We know that we've got a lot of time in the field. We've got a lot of great ideas. So we appreciate everybody following along on this adventure. With that said, today's topic is something that Adam and I are both passionate about. We've got, you know, we've both experienced growing others in different ways. And I think we could both agree that the hallmark of a exceptional leader is someone that grows the people around them. Right, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we said it on the last 3 podcast recordings, like growing people is everything. Like, you know, putting time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, make those emotional connections and grow each other is the whole name of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'd like to look back, Adam, to, you know, a story that you told that was foundational in your growth as a leader. And it was a leader that called you out on whether you'd grown anybody. You thought that you'd been doing really good and you had that call out. Could you recall that story for us? It's pretty solid.
Yeah. So I in 2009, we'll scale it back a little bit. 2009, I kind of had lost my career due to the economy. You know, I was a fire sprinkler fitter in Vegas. Work was really tough. And then I got on a construction crew that was building a Home Depot. And, you know, loved it. Loved the atmosphere. It wasn't even open yet, and got to meet all the managers. And I got to say that I just latched on to them while we were kind of building this whole thing. And they offered me there was no positions really. And they offered me a part-time overnight position, stocking shelves. And it was way less money. And my wife and I and our kids, she was pregnant with number 5. We had to live at her mom's. And it was so hard and working overnights. And I just really worked hard. I was really hungry. But I didn't learn the word humble. I knew I was hungry to get my situation better with my kids and my wife. And we had really hit rock bottom. And so I worked my butt off and networked and got moved to days. And then, you know, became a department supervisor of 2 different departments. And we crushed it. In one of the departments, we were like number 1 in the whole Western region, and, you know, got an award and I mean, all kinds of things. And this leader of mine, I'm not going to name him. I haven't asked his permission yet. You know who you are, sir. I'm sure you're listening. You know, he was one of those guys that he lit up the room. And whenever he walked by, you wanted to talk to him. You wanted to grow from him. And he was very, very direct when he talked. Like you know, this is this, but then he also was personable in a way. And when I was all pumped and I wanted to be promoted to higher, he kind of, you know, just said, hey, like, I would never promote you. Like, you know what I mean? The company might promote you, but I wouldn't do it. And I was shocked. And, we were busy, walked away, and then I didn't see him for a few days. And then I kind of asked him why. And he was like, who have you grown?
Yeah.
Who on your team that wanted full time, that was struggling like you at part time, have you gotten promoted to full time? Where have you advocated for them? Where have you sat down and asked them their goals and what they wanted to achieve? Do we even know? He's like, before you get promoted or anything, you really need to think about the people around you. Are you lifting them up? Are you inspiring them? Are you growing them? Well, then I talked to another leader that I love so much. There was 3 of them there that I really, phenomenal leaders to this day, like huge people in my life. And she was like, Adam, you haven't learned to be hungry, but humble. What? And so I really thought about that. And I read this book. They all told me to read it. And it changed me, changed the way I'm thinking. It taught me what servant leadership is.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a thing. Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I changed right then and there. And I quickly, after those moments, I think it was 6 months later, I was promoted because I just cared about my people from that day on.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. You and I both operate from that same core of caring, caring and servant leadership. As a leader, leaders are there to pave the road. They're not there to pull the rope or push the horse. They're there to pave the road ahead of the team to let the team be successful. And I would say pave the road and set the guardrails. And then let the team race, and really that's the leader's job. One thing that you're touching on is one of the core values that you and I both hang our hats on, and that's raising the team around us to be better than we could be. Taking that pride and seeing those people grow, setting the ego aside, because insecurity and ego holds a lot of leaders back because they're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of somebody having a better idea. They're afraid of somebody taking their position. And they're so insecure that they squelch out the growth of that team around them. Usually that squelching that growth comes in the form of over control. And, there's been so many leaders that we've both observed, and we've had these conversations of, if that leader just loosened the reins up and trusted in their team and put some wind in their sails, then that leader would have more accolades, more growth because of their team's growth than they ever could have imagined, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think once you put the fear away, we talked about it before, being overstepped or overshadowed or exposed on maybe some opportunities that you have, and you're really afraid of people seeing those opportunities. But once you own it, like you and I talked about all the time, once you own it to your team, like, hey, I have opportunities here. You guys can help me grow while I help you grow. And if we approach it that way, then the team's not going to think, oh, well, we got an incompetent leader. Yeah. We have a trustworthy, vulnerable leader that just wants all of us to grow to be the best we can be. And then that creates buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the leader doesn't have to know it all. I've had quite a few conversations, and I've had, promotion conversations about people where there's been a push to promote somebody because they've been there the longest and they know the roles, the technical roles, and they're not necessarily the best leader. And I think we see that a lot where, somebody's got the tenure, they've been there the longest, they're the best at making the widgets. So obviously you make them the leader of the widget makers. Right. And that very rarely plays out well. I would say that you could hire somebody who's not the best widget maker, but they're the best communicator. They're the best at working with people. They're the best at creating collaboration, alignment, and buy-in and trust. And that person has the potential to be a better leader than the person who's the best widget maker.
Yeah, I think there's one thing I learned is like evenness. I always look for the Michael Jordan of leaders, like that are even keel, that have emotions, but they don't show their poker hand all the time. They're genuine and vulnerable, but at the same time, they're steadfast in their decision making, and they act quickly, and they involve the team on those decisions. I think, we're always searching to be that Michael Jordan of leaders, And like I said, like my dad was not a vocal inspirational person, but people
Right.
followed him again because he led through action. Like
Yeah.
he led by doing and then being there and then, trusting the team around him to here's the objective, execute. And then
Yeah.
once that person executed, they got higher responsibilities, right? Like he rewarded
Yeah.
that way. So there's two
Yeah.
sides, right? And
Yeah.
I think to really grow somebody, whether you're somebody like me who's, like a highlighter, I like to really pump people up and tell them what they're really doing good, like a crap sandwich, right? I really
Yeah.
resonate with the crap sandwich. Like, hey, what have you done amazing? Then you kind of break down like the defenses. Hey, can we work on this together? Here's the opportunities. And then you end it with, hey man, hey person, this is really awesome that you're doing this, this, and this. We just need
Yeah.
to fix this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Or grow this, this, and this.
Yeah. I've always latched on to the 70-30 rule, and the 70-30 rule of 70% praise to 30% constructive criticism. And gosh, as a leader, as you're thinking about going through your day, we're always looking for the corrections. And if you really start trying to be intentional about making 70% of your interactions being praise, it can feel awkward. And you feel like you're grasping for straws, but it's been proven that people need that positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
And as a leader, you've got to be intentional about it. We get so into the heat of the moment in the day, and we're fighting fires, and in our minds we think the way to fight the fires is those corrections, like, hey, don't do this, hey, do this. And you can stop and think, if you stop and thought about, hey, when was the last time that I stopped and told Tommy, like, hey man, you did a really good job. And being intentional with it, right? And having specifics. Hey Tommy, your schedules were super on point last week, and you moved this initiative forward. Great job. And as a leader, you have to stop and do that. You have to have the mechanisms for that, and it's hard.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that I never heard the 70-30. I really like that, by the way. Well, one off on that one. I think I naturally probably do that, but I got a leader that tells me all the time, dude, slow down, stop and smell the roses, celebrate the wins a little bit, reset, look at it again through clear eyes, and realize how much growth you've had, because it really goes by quickly. Take your kids for example.
Yeah.
Facebook memories, and you look back and you're like, look at their faces 3 years ago versus now.
Right.
You didn't even notice it.
Right.
Right. The growth. It's the same way. It's the same thing about your people, about you. Stop and smell the roses every once in a while. Reset. Look at the memories for a second. See where you came from. Who got you there. And it's very important. Yeah.
So I think I read this story in a Liz Wiseman book, and she was talking about a manager, and this manager was the most on point with showing up at people's desks and giving them positive reinforcement with, with facts behind it. Right. And just like absolutely like clockwork. And, this went on for years and years and years. And at one point, she or whoever was telling the story saw his Outlook calendar, and he had scheduled in his Outlook calendar, go talk to Mary, go talk to Bob, go talk to, and he had that blocked out. It was important enough for him to do, to give that positive reinforcement, that he had it blocked out in his calendar. And like, first gut check, it's like, oh, that's ingenuine and that's mechanical. But then it's like, no, that's genius. That guy set that time aside. It was important enough for him to set it out, have thoughts about what he was going to go talk to him about, and make a point to go talk to them on a recurring basis and give them positive reinforcement.
I mean, that is the most intentional thing that I can think of. Yeah. Is that you are a highly busy person, probably phone calls, emails, text messages that you couldn't believe, and you want to set aside a few minutes of time to be personable. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Great tip. Great tool for growing.
I love that story.
There.
Great story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
to grow people, you really got to know what makes them tick.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have become a really good people reader over my life, coming from harsh environments where you got to read faces and body language and, to now where, you could vibes. We talk about vibes. You walk in the room,
Yeah.
you can feel the vibe right away, or,
Yeah.
people's faces. And the one thing, especially like say in sports, you got kids that are just like, they don't know how to express their emotions. They're growing, their hormones are changing. Then you got to find what makes them tick. Is it a little more one-on-one time and attention with inspiration?
Yeah.
Like, you could do this, Johnny. You got this. I believe in you. Or is it, hey, you know the job, execute the job. You got this, lead your team. And you got to find, like, that's the trick. Like, what makes them go? What gives them feel? I like a good kick in the pants, like I said, every once in a while. Hey, Adam, wake up. Let's go.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Let's go.
Right.
Other people just like, they need a little extra time. They seek that little extra one-on-one time to know and validate that what they're doing is good and where they're growing at is right. And then they're good for a while. And I think if we really take time as leaders to figure out personally what makes their people tick, it's going to be different. They're all different. So we gotta find that. Yeah.
Right. You can't lead every person the exact same way. There's no way that model doesn't work. One term that I like to use is, putting wind in somebody's sails. What is it going to take to put wind in somebody's sails? And honestly, I absolutely could have been much more intentional about this. This is another one of those gut things, right? Like, I'm constantly analyzing what makes people tick and what lights them up. And there's certainly opportunity to be more intentional about that and making a list or a notepad, but just sitting through and thinking through, what are the strengths? What is it? What is it that lights my people up? Because I guarantee that you're going to have a lot more impact on your team moving in a forward direction if you're focused on what lights them up and what puts wind in their sails, as opposed to what deficiencies they need to correct.
Yeah, the wind in the sails. I've heard that, and people do. Everybody needs reinforcement. Everybody needs a little breath from behind. Especially, everybody has down days. I have down days all the time, and I'm the most positive guy I think I know. But there's days where I'm not, and it's the team around me that goes, "Hey, man." They recognize it right away because we know each other so well. Hey, you're right. What's going on? What happened? And, whoa, how did you know? And so important to know your team, to know each other well, to pick up the vibes, to read their actions so you could be that breath of wind in their sails. Pick them up when they need it picked up. And I don't care who you are, everybody needs that from time to time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a specific example, right, of putting wind in somebody's sails. There was a guy that we worked with that was on our team, and he had more construction knowledge than I'll ever have. More knowledge in construction and wetlands and all sorts of stuff. Just incredibly intelligent. And he had gotten onto a bit of an island. He was kind of isolated. And I remember when I first came onto the team, I had a conversation with him. I was like, hey, when was the last time you talked to Johnny? Right. And he was like, it's been a couple months. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that doesn't work. That plan just does not work. So I started an intentional strategy of, when technical questions came in from anybody else on the team, I redirected to that guy.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that served so many purposes, right? Number one, it served as connection within the team. And this was even if I knew the answer to the question, I was going to redirect to him. And it immediately changed his step and his performance and how he engaged, because all of a sudden he was looked at as a subject matter expert, right? And that put wind in his sails, and you could see it. And then as soon as the rest of the team were looking at him in high regard as a subject matter expert, well, then now he had to hold the bar up. The spot, people were looking up to him for his expertise. Well, then now he had to be tight on all of his stuff. as a secondary function because everybody was looking at it and looking at him. And for me, from my perspective, that was, I recognized that being a technical expert was something that fulfilled him. And then I just played traffic redirector, and it made monumental change in him and his trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah, you did that with all of us in a way. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Took a lot of pieces from you on that, to this very day. I think consistency is what people look for, right? They
Yeah.
look for you being consistent and intentional. So routine, right? People get stuck in a rut. We talked about ruts. It's hard to grow from deep ruts, right? But if you take their routine away, you add a new process, you take Mr. Ed away from the store down the street from my house that I see every day. He learned my name the very first day I went in there 11 years ago. People get weird and they get uncomfortable. So how do we push them out to being comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Because change is going to happen, and it's going to happen, and that's being consistent.
Uh-huh.
Coach in the moment, train on the processes, right? Develop their strengths and inspire them every day. Every day, give them a little something like, hey, you can do this. We got this. This is change, and it's part of the growth. Change is part of growth. We'll become, Toys R Us or Blockbuster. We're not changing constantly.
Right. I hope you're okay unpacking a story. We talking about changing things up and a pattern shift in leadership and within a team. I had a thing that I would do, and gosh, I did it. I mean, I did it with a lot of different teams, but pairing up people of either similar jobs and different personalities, or different personalities, right? I mean, I would put sales agents in the truck with superintendents. I'd put superintendents together. Adam, in our team, I looked at you and one of the other team members, and I saw, these great complementing, traits, but you guys were very different. You guys are still very, very different. And I chose to put you guys on a build together, working side by side, executing you guys. And I think that I said that I don't care how you guys arrange who does what, but you both are accountable. You both are accountable to make sure that this build is successful. Right.
Yeah.
And essentially threw you guys into the pit together, because, you guys had such awesome qualities on both sides of the spectrum. And my hope was just some of that would wear off on both of you. Could you unpack that story just a little bit, and your experience and thoughts on that?
Yeah, without going into too much depth. So as far as who he is, what, when, where, and why, I mean, what an amazing human being, first of all.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people on this earth, dear close friend of mine and yours, just outstanding individual. And when we mean other end of the spectrum, is this person is very precise and militant, and the process is the process. And I'm very
I called him my rock, right?
he's consistent, like the rock.
Absolutely knew when was going to be done, how it was going to be done. You didn't have to keep an eye on him because he was absolutely the rock.
Right. And then I'm the far end. I'm a little dangerous. I like to shoot from the hip. I like to roll the dice and play poker a little bit. And that probably ruined his role for a few months. But, I think that whole scenario, I did things my way. He did his way during that. It was a bit of a shit show throughout the whole thing. But at the end of the day, we killed it. The house was beautiful.
Client was thrilled.
Thrilled. I learned a lot, and I know every time him and I talk about it, he tells me how much he learned. His spectrum, drawed more towards the middle, and mine did too, on priorities and importance and who, what, where, when, and why. I mean, that was very difficult, but very awesome at the same time. Yeah. I mean, you created a lifelong friend of mine by doing that. And somebody that I seek advice when sometimes I let my emotions get in front of me and I overthink. I'm an overthinker. I will call this person and be like, hey man, give me the steadfast thoughts on this. And he was the one
Yeah.
that I came to when I thought you were just on me for no reason. Like, and
Right.
he was the one that said,
Right.
well, it's not gray, it's black and white. Are you right or
Yeah.
are you wrong? I'm wrong. Okay, then you know what to do. So, I mean, what a beautiful human being I have in my life that I could call at any time when I'm emotionally overthinking it or whatever, and he could give me the black and white.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, this is some of the magic behind what makes a team tick, right? We talk about the sum of the whole is greater than the parts, and I use that term a lot. And it's that magic that happens between team members where you guys are supporting and pushing and growing and comparing, and you know, all of those things that helps drive the level of that team higher than every one of those individuals working as individuals in silos.
Right.
You know.
That was ingenious. I think, you know, looking back at it even more, you know, all these years later, over a decade, almost a decade, like genius move. It doesn't always work.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. But if you don't try, then you're not leading. If you don't,
Yeah.
you don't try to grow from the back seat sometime from a higher elevation, like you were really good at, like grow people, then you're not leading. You're not trying. Yeah. Genius.
Yeah.
Loved it.
A slight pivot here. And Adam, I know where you stand on personal growth of your team.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Jocko Willink, and we both hold Jocko in high regard. And he was asked point blank, as a leader, what's one thing that he would have done differently? And he said immediately, he said, take more interest in the personal growth of my team. And, you know, he was so focused on the mission of the SEALs that he failed to give that, you know, personal advice and personal guidance. And, you know, that makes me think back to, you know, you remember when when we would have monthly books or a book that we would read as a team. And it was a personal finance book that I had sent out to the team. And I remember there was a couple of like why do you care about personal finance? And the back of my mind is if the team is personally financially responsible and they care about those things, that's going to take stress. I mean, the number one stressor in people's lives and marriage is money, right?
It's
And
money.
so if they've got an understanding of that and they've got some tips and tricks to be able to do better at that, that's going to help them at their job, because they're going to be, you know, less distracted, less concerned, you know, more focused on what they're doing at work. And then, you know, the other thing is just that, you know, fiscal responsibility too. I mean, it plays into almost every single decision of every single job of fiscal responsibility.
You know, if you're not thinking every aspect of your people's lives, financial, family, personal, you know, their own personal time, even away from like family or extra duties at home. I know for me and my wife, like we're huge in the community for like youth sports and fundraising. And, you know, sometimes it drags, like it's hard, and, you know, we need a break. And then, you know, my guys around me will tell me like, hey man, when's the last time you just gone out by yourselves or whatever? And when you get to that level of teamwork and compassion for each other and growth, that even matters. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Caring about people personally. Yeah. Let's talk about it's IGPs. It's IGP season. And I know individual growth plan, annual reviews, that sort of stuff. You know,
IDPs,
let's
whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Whatever you want to call them, right? And, you know, I know that you've taken some of my old tactics and taken them even further than, you know, than what we used to do. What's some of your strategy? And let's expand that onto more than just IGPs, like reviews, weekly connections. Like what's your secrets to success with your team?
Failure of me and companies around me from prior situations. I mean, so, you know, I don't know how many times I busted my butt. Then there's a review time to get a raise, usually, you know, twice a year at most corporations, and they got not meet expectations meet expectations or,
Right.
higher than expectations. And then you killed your metrics. You were on time every day. You never missed. You never called out. And then you got meet expectations and you get a small raise. And you're like, what do I got to do to get exceeding expectations? Well, a lot
Right.
of times. And what's crazy is what I learned when I moved up into middle management, they were taught to say this.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. You can always
Right.
have room to grow.
Right.
What? Like,
That's crazy, right?
what? Well, I've been asking you for a year, like, how am I doing? You're telling me I'm killing it. Keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then you tell me I'm meeting expectations. There was no bigger
Yeah.
letdown, bro. I would walk out of that office so freaking mad, dude. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're like, man, that can't be right. That just can't be
Yeah.
right. And then, I went to another company that really, they did like a sit down at a restaurant or somewhere personal. And we just talked about growth. Like, hey, what do you want
Yeah.
to focus on? What do you think your achievements were? And I always thought that was cool, but it was never like written in stone at the time.
Right.
It was just kind of like a personal conversation.
Yeah.
And I never felt like jaded when I left that conversation, but just felt like, what can we do more? And so I think for me, I took a bunch of pieces. Like you and I used to write it down on like a Word document.
Yeah. Yeah. I still have
And-
those Word docs.
Right. And we got to revisit them and really cool. And then for me, like I tell my teams all the time, like, oh, there was another thing. Whenever you did do your self-assessment, you wrote all this great stuff, took a lot of time and effort, and then you get one or two sentences back.
Yeah.
With no substance, and you're left wondering, where are we going with this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
with you did a really good job of affirming our successes, our personal, what we want to grow in, and then you would add a tidbit or two. So then I started telling my people, what you put in your self-evaluation, I'm going to give you more back. So every time, if you're writing one sentence, I'm going to give you 5.
Right.
And
Yep.
that really, like my teams really woke up to that. It took a while
Yeah.
to like really accept it. And
Yeah.
now like IGP time is a carpal tunnel fest for me because I'm having to type in backspace so much that they're putting everything in there. They're putting what they
Yeah.
succeeded in, what they feel like they need to work on and get better in, what their
Yeah.
focuses should be or want to be. And I'm able to like really give them candid feedback. And then we revisit that all the time. We add action items to it, and it's phenomenal. Like,
Right. Right. Well, the one thing that I really enjoyed about IGPs is I loved having that conversation and continuing to pull the thread on the target, right? Somebody, we would pre-prep, right? The team would come to the IGP with the idea of what their goals are going to be. But then being able to take that goal and break that down into real action items, right? I always tried to build around the SMART strategy of setting goals. And gosh, what's SMART? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, right?
timely. Yeah.
And so you get somebody that comes to an IGP and they're like, man, I want to build houses faster, right? You're like, okay, well that's awesome.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So what's some things that are going to help you build houses faster? Well, I got to run better schedules. Okay, well that's great. Like running better, like we all shoot for that. But how are we going to run better schedules? Well, I'm going to do my updates. Okay, that's great. Like that. Okay, we need to update our schedules. That moves the ball forward. What specifically can you do to make sure that those schedules get updated, right? And then it's like, okay, well at 7 a.m. I'm going to block out 15 minutes on my calendar and I'm going to update my schedules, right? And then there's a check-in. It's like, okay, John, did you let's take a look at your calendar. Did you put that into your calendar? Yep, I've got my 15 minutes in there and I'm doing it. Okay. That's actionable. That's, and then, those actions are going to drive the results. I guarantee if you have 1 or 2 actions that are aligned with that goal, you're going to see that goal move. Well, I mean, if you don't see the goal move, then they weren't great actions, were they?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think of a book. I actually was talking about this with a really good buddy of mine that I coach with. He was a colonel, Black Hawk helicopter pilot for Special Forces in the
Mhm.
wars. Amazing human being. We were talking about the book Make Your Bed, and it's a book
Yeah.
about starting the day, making the bed.
Mhm.
Now
Yeah.
you accomplish task
Yeah.
one, the easiest
Right.
task of the day, and then each task gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
I remember some of your action items that we come up with. I almost felt like I was just trying to put my shoes on the right way or something,
Yeah.
right? The right
Yeah.
foot. And they were that minimal, and then they grew over time, right?
Right.
And I think that's very important that to get to the root cause, we start with the low-hanging fruit, like we like to say, grasp those, get some momentum, and then we can really, really dig deep to see where we need to be. And yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, when it comes to setting goals and metrics, I've found that especially when you have somebody who's new or has not been used to working in an environment where some structures around goals and metrics, you get buy-in on the concept, and then you tell them it doesn't matter how small or dumb the metric may seem. Like you tell me what you're gonna do. John, if it's you're gonna update your schedule once a week or once every 2 weeks, if that's what you can do and you can be successful at, that's fine. He's bought in on the concept of improving his schedules and improving his cycle times. He's bought in on that. And then, now you get John, and he's updating his schedules once every 2 weeks. Okay, that's great. He's successful. And then the next time that you meet, it's like, hey, John, the last 5 months, you've been on it. You've been money every single time. What are your thoughts on bumping that up? Like, I'm not going to tell you what the metric needs to be, but I think you're crushing it. And what would it take for you to push it? And he's like, okay, well, I'll update my schedules once every week. Right.
Well, you also got to show them the result.
Right. The data. Yes.
Yeah.
It has to be tracked.
Hey, so you did this once every other week. Here's what you've moved from here to here. Like, imagine what we could do from here to here, and if you show the results, a lot of people don't see the results on the way. Like, I've been working out since late October and trying to be better, and I don't see that I've lost 40 pounds. I don't see it on me. Other people have commented all the time.
Yeah.
Wow, you're looking really good. Keep going.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. But you don't see the results all the time. So a good leader, those are great, but also show the results. Show them their growth and their movement, and what the minor task of setting your schedule at 7 a.m. every other week. Look at how much you move that needle, and you came up with it. That's the coolest thing about our style of leadership. We don't always come up with the great ideas. No. We just empower them to think deeply, think outside the box, get vulnerable, and say, what is the problem? How can we solve it? How can I support you in this? Oh, you want me to check in with you on your calendar invite every couple weeks? Easy. Let's do it.
Great.
Right?
Yeah.
And all you're doing is empowering them.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything else.
Yeah. I've always been really big on self-reporting. And I think that, a blend of you self-report the forward-looking metrics and you watch the data results on the backside and of the lag metrics. The lag metrics are always going to come out in the data. But the self-reporting, I didn't need people to, I didn't need to watch their calendar and have a shared calendar to ensure that they had their, weekly updates on the calendar. But when we came together as a team before your peers, you said yes or no as to whether you did your schedule updates. And there's a lot of power in that, right? Like that's the leader demonstrating trust. That's putting, personal accountability into the mix. And then that's also putting that layer of team accountability in the mix. And I feel like that was a very powerful way to move things forward.
Yeah, I think I said this before, and you might have echoed it, but give them the car, give them the gas, give them the keys, punch in the GPS coordinates that they want to go. right? And then sit in the seat and let them drive.
Right.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
We might get it back and everything fails and whatever, but I'm always going to be there to grab that steering wheel. Like my son, I'm trying to teach right now. We live right next to a police officer, and he turned the corner to shop right at his house and almost hit a fire hydrant, and we stopped 2 feet in front, but I was right there.
Yeah.
And I was right there to calm him off the ledge because he was shaking like a leaf, right? And I was right there to be like, okay. And what's funny, Don, no joke, perfect correlation, right? I calmly coached him in the moment.
In the
opportunity.
Yes.
What he did wrong. Right then and there.
Yeah.
Why he was like, get me out of here. He was like wanting to jump out of the car.
Right.
I said, hey, calm down. Here's what you did wrong. Right?
Yeah.
Here's the process. So we trained on the process. Like you came in too sharp.
Yeah.
Right? Here's how you do it. And then, your strengths. Hey, you didn't come in at 30 miles an hour. You came in at 15, which gave you time. Right. And then I inspired him, like, next turn, you got this. I made him reverse. Like, the fire hydrant's right here. Cop's house is literally right here. Love him. Love my neighbor. If you're watching, he backs out. I made him do it too. He didn't want it.
Yeah.
He goes up to the next corner, execute a flawless turn. Right. That's a perfect analogy of letting them drive the car, but you're just right there to grab the wheel, give a little direction. People are smart. They are powerful. They can do it. Some people lack confidence, and maybe that's your piece is the confidence. Some people like affirmation. Am I doing this right? Sure. I don't know. What do you think? Let's look at the numbers, or let's look at what you accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Some people want to be left the hell alone, right? And you have to check in with them. You good? And you got to know them and read them like, oh, something's up. Hey, let's spend a little time together. Because they don't want to raise their hand and be like, hey, help, because they're the type of people that like to get it done, and they're consistent, the rock, right? So if you can discern between your people, know how they tick, you could put those little seeds that you did so well, and you do. I mean, you do it to me all the time, like during the week. You'll plant like a seed. You already planted like 2. I've already been thinking about a week. And, I just watch it grow. And you've been, that's one of your superpowers, is driving from the passenger seat and planting seeds. Yeah.
Well, creating a vision, I'm not going to put you on the spot to remember the 5 things, but it's been a long time. But I talk about the 5 things, and I would say, if you're exceeding customer expectations, if your house is around schedule, if your QC is on point, if you know your costs and you're meeting variance targets, if you're doing those 5 things, remember, I would say, I don't care if you're building houses with pink ponies. Like if you're doing those 5 things, you're being successful in my eyes. The nuances of what vendor goes where and who does what. And, if you're killing those 5 things, that's great. Like we're doing great. You can do whatever you want inside of the intricacies of how to build a house.
Well, you even scaled it down to layman's terms for me when I first started. It was keep your homeowners happy.
Yeah.
Finish when you say you're going to finish.
Right. When you say you're going to finish.
And I don't want to hear from your trades. You build your team.
Yeah.
I do not want to be a backdoor from the trade around you to me. And to this day, I say things the same way. Like, it could be anything. It could be the chores at home. Yeah. I don't care what you do in that time. I don't care if you got a doctor's appointment. I don't care if you're out throwing a football at noon with your kid or whatever it is. But of these things being accomplished, we're good. And you're being effective.
Well, that goes right back to extreme ownership, right? Commander's intent. Yeah. You if a team knows the vision, the values, and the guardrails that the commander has set, the people who are executing, going back to trusting in your team being incredibly smart and being able to figure out things. the team is going to be able to execute a mission way better than you ever could have if you had lined things out step for step, because they're smart. They're going to figure things out. They're going to figure out the back doors and the side doors and the trap doors. They're going to figure that stuff out. And if you give them the right wind in their sails and you empower them the right way, they're going to do things that you could never even imagine.
Yeah, they're going to move mountains, and they do move mountains. And I think, the one piece that I really found like myself in, my strength in our team, your and I team, was creating competition, healthy competition.
Yeah.
And I could care less about winning, but I sure made it a point that I did, and I'm coming for you guys. And I think the guys like, what? And like they really stepped up their game, and I really tried to beat them, but I wasn't like upset if I didn't. But I would always I think I was your pusher. I think I was your megaphone guy. Like, hey, here we go. And I've been like, that's been my role now for a while. Is I've always said you were like a general. You would draft up the battle plan. You would just draft it up, put it in front of the team. I'm always like a captain, where I take the battle plan or a sergeant, and I would rally the troops to execute that battle plan.
Right.
I could put it into terms that they understood. I could pump them up, and execute that plan. And I think there's a role for everybody in growth.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't care if you're a leader like Gandhi, or if you're a leader like, yourself or me. No, not everybody's like me.
They're silent assassins. I'm not a silent assassin.
Silent assassin.
We know silent assassins.
But what's cool is the silent assassins come to me for this piece. I go to the silent assassins for this piece.
Right.
And that's vulnerable leadership. Or I will send my people, hey, that's a silent assassin job. You might want to talk to this person. There's no fear that I'm viewed as weak or I don't know my job.
No.
I'm being vulnerable and honest and directing them to the best person possible.
Right.
To be successful.
To help accentuate their thought or their skill.
And their growth, right? So I'll even put on my people's like reviews or IGPs, spend time with this person.
Right.
Call them. See if you can spend time with them. Because they're going to grow you in this area way more than I can grow. And if you can have that level of security in your own self and put your ego aside and just be like, hey, man, we're all growing. You guys are growing me too. I might have a title, quote, quote, title. I hate titles, right? I like to manage and lead without a title. Maybe we'll unpack managing up one day and leading without a title. But you don't need a title. I tell my guys all the time, don't call me boss.
Right.
I hate that term. Right. I hate that word.
Right.
We're in this together. Yeah. I might
demonstrating that humbleness.
I might be the end all be all on certain decisions, but that decision is not coming without your input.
Right.
It's not going to come without your input. So.
Yep. Team buy-in. Well, Adam, this has been a good one. We're getting to the end of our hour. I just wanted to throw a quick recap in here on this one. So, topic of this week's episode is growing others. You and I are both passionate about it. We've talked about, humbleness in leadership, leaving you at the door, how the sum of the whole is greater than the parts in a team, and driving towards that vision, figuring out what puts the wind in the sails of each of your team members. And, really being deliberate about understanding the individual traits of each of your team members and helping put that drive behind them. We talked about personal growth, and then we unpacked IGPs. I think each one of those topics we could probably break down into a full episode. Yeah. There's been half a dozen times in this conversation where I want to go down a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of episodes ahead of us for doing that, and I'm excited to continue to unpack this stuff with you. So to close out, this is the Leadership Lunch Hour. We air these episodes on YouTube. We have all the clips on all of the other socials. But if you like what we're doing, listen, follow along, subscribe on YouTube. We're going to put an episode out every week. And then, if you really stick with us, there's hopefully going to be a book at the end of the rainbow after we do this for a few episodes. So Adam, thank you again so much for your time. I appreciate this opportunity to chat with you every week.
Always, my friend. Great topic. And appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you out there, and please comment or call or write or email, whatever you got. We really enjoy those. Thank you, guys.